Recorded Books and One Click Digital present The Man in the Monster, an intimate portrait of a serial killer by Martha Elliott. Narrated by Kyra Miller. Preface. No one in her right mind invites a serial killer into her life. Who would want to know that kind of evil? For more than a decade, this is exactly what I did. I never imagined that I would consider someone like Michael Ross, a convicted serial rapist and murderer, a close friend. But from 1995 until his death by lethal injection in 2005, that is exactly what I did and what he became to me. I deplore violence, and I do not wish to mitigate what Michael Ross did before his 1984 arrest. He took 8 lives, and he ruined many more. Over the course of my investigation into this case, I got to know many of the people whose lives he forever altered. Some of the families of his victims became friends of mine as well. I wrote this book as much for them and for the daughters they lost as I did for myself. The courts and the state of Connecticut have rendered justice in the case of Michael Ross. But until we see the man in the monster, we cannot begin to comprehend why he did what he did, or to make a personal judgment as to whether sentencing Michael to death was a just punishment. Many books have been written on the topic of how someone can become a serial killer. This book grapples with the question of why this man, Michael Ross, turned to violence so many times. I hope that what I learned will help identify others like him before they turn down the same murderous path. Michael Ross was my partner in this investigation. He opened up his life to me so that together we might tell his story. I believe he worked with me for so many years as a kind of atonement for what he had done. His life was full of contradictions. He was a moral man who committed heinously immoral acts, a man capable of great bravery who was also cowardly, an intelligent man whose stubbornness defied reason. All of these facets dwelled within this man. To the best of my ability, I have told his story. I became intrigued by Michael Ross's case in the summer of 1995 during my tenure as the editor-in-chief and publisher of the Connecticut Law Tribune. When the Connecticut Supreme Court overturned the 6 death sentences that he had been given in 1987, he began lobbying to accept a death sentence to spare the families of his victims the pain of going through another trial. I was puzzled by his unusual offer, and I was intrigued by the complexities of mental illness and the death penalty, which I have always strongly opposed. I wrote, asking for an interview for an article for the Tribune, even though the thought of him petrified me. The man I met was nothing like what I had expected. He wasn't insane according to the legal definition, someone who lacks the capacity to understand the wrongfulness of an act because of mental disease or defect. Quite the contrary. This sensitive, articulate Cornell graduate was also a devout Roman Catholic who would profusely express his remorse for his crimes to anyone who would listen. His crimes were horrific. Michael had raped and murdered 8 women, and there were other victims of sexual assault as well. To report his story, I had to read thousands of pages of court testimony and police reports and interview lawyers, psychiatrists, family members, friends, and the victims' families. I also consulted experts who had evaluated him and cited behavioral, chemical, and psychological origins of Michael's murderous behaviors. At various times, experts had argued that Michael suffered from a variety of afflictions that might explain his criminal behavior, including sexual sadism, brain lesions, and childhood trauma. I found that his was a case without simple answers, as are so many that involve mental illness. I have no doubt that all of the factors cited by the experts involved in his case contributed to Michael's actions, but I don't believe they tell
Sample complete. Ready to continue?